Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the Mr.fixit channel. Got a blown head gasket. I'm gonna get in there and change it, maybe figure out why it happened. Stay tuned.
I was sitting out there in the shed one evening, not doing too much of nothing, just kind of staring at the wall. And
Alright, so you can see I have the plastics in the gas tank removed here. That's easy enough to do. It's just a few screws, pull the fuel line, get that out of the way. We're going after the head gasket. First thing I need to do is drain the coolant. There is a drain up there on the radiator, but that's not going to get it all out. But I'll walk you through all this. Easy. This is easy. Alright, so up here on the front right of the radiator, there is a drain. The guy is right there. So unscrew that guy, let the coolant come out. And it helps to take the cap off too. Alright, get your drain pan or bucket or whatever ready here. This is going to make a mess. So I'm going to go ahead and pop the cap off here. Hopefully I can catch as much of this in the bucket as I can. So unscrew this. Just going to let that drain out. Alright, so once you get the radiator drained mostly, take your cap, stick it on here, but just do the first click where it's still loose, but it's clipped on. Take this bleeder screw out of the top of the head. Careful you don't lose the copper washer, it goes with it. I have the top radiator hose clamped off with my vice grips, and they have rubber on them to keep from damaging the hose. And the reason I'm doing this is because the cylinder head is lower than the top of the radiator, so it's going to trap fluid in the motor, and the only other way to drain the coolant out of the engine is to drop the lower hose. You gotta take the skid plate off and then undo that hose, and then it goes everywhere. It makes a huge mess. So I'm gonna take my air line now and I'm gonna pressurize the cooling system here. Don't give it too much pressure. You don't want to over pressurize the cooling system, but I'm gonna put some pressure in here, and that's gonna push the coolant out of the engine and up the lower hose and back into the radiator and out that drain. Just continue this and you can get all the fluid you can out of there. Alright, I made a little mess because I bumped too much air in that right at first and it spurted out. But as long as you don't do that, you won't make too big of a mess. The cooling system in this holds 2 quarts. This is a 1 gallon pail. So you can see we got most of the coolant out. So if you just wanted to do a coolant flush, it might be feasible. Do it this way. Okay, go ahead and screw this thing back in. That way you don't forget about it. Alright, so we've got to take the spark plug wire off and take the temperature sending unit wire off. We've got to take this upper hose off. And if I drain enough coolant out of there, hopefully when I take this hose off, coolant won't go everywhere. I'm going to need a pair of pliers. Let's give this a little twist gently. Now gently. Twist this back and forth. Try not to damage it. Now that you got it broke loose, you can pull it off. Okay, now the next thing I need to take off, I'm going to go ahead and pull the spark plug out. And after that, I mean, if you wanted to, if this thing's it's kind of in the way, you can take this off. There's 2 screws right here, and then it's clamped to the belt cover right there. You can get this out of the way if you want, but I think we can get past it. We got these 6 12mm nuts, and that takes the head off. Easy enough, right? You know, I've really been beating the crap out of this poor old Polaris here this summer. Tell you what, man, some of these trails out here at the park are rough and bumpy, steep hills and mud and everything else out there. That looks rich. Alright, I like to take these off in a crisscrossing pattern, you know, the same way you would put them back on. And I'm just going to crack each one of them loose before I fully do it. This will prevent head warpage as you put this thing on and off. Now I shouldn't have to mention this, but I will. Make sure there's no dirt caked all over this thing before you do this. I sprayed this off with water and cleaned this up before I even started, so you don't want any dirt getting in here. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. The water neck hits the frame. I totally forgot about that. It's been a while since I've done just a head gasket on this. Might have to take a little more apart here. You know, if engineers would have thought, they would have moved this over. You know, it only needs a 1/4 of an inch. And it would probably come right off of there. Alright, well I'm going to have to take this engine mount loose on the top here. Alright, these 2 1/2-inch bolts, just going to take it apart right here. And one of these days I'm going to buy me a standard set of ratcheting wrenches. I got a metric set, but not a standard set. Okay, now I'm just going to take a pry bar. I'm going to shove the engine over just a little bit. There, and that comes right off. Alright, let's have a look in here. See if we can figure out why this gasket failed. Nothing's really standing out to me here. Maybe one of you guys can pick it out, but looks like it was leaking past that, maybe? I've had several head gaskets not seal putting them on brand new. I don't understand if it's the gasket or if it's the engine. I'm not sure. So I need to check to make sure that's flat, and I need to check to make sure this is flat and there's no cracks anywhere. Yeah, so let's do some inspecting. I'm gonna say the cylinder looks pretty good. Don't see any scratches. It's got like a shiny spot right there above the exhaust port. Yeah, that looks good inside there. No excessive carbon buildup. Top of the cylinder head is pretty clean. Could be from burning coolant. You can see some of the damage that this has had in the past. Like something's gotten in there and peened the top of the cylinder head. But that's always been there. Alright, I got this gasket surface cleaned up here. I'm going to check for flatness. So the flattest thing I own is this 1-inch gauge bar. So I'm going to take this and lay it across here in several different positions. Like this, and like this, and like this, and like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look to see if there's any gaps underneath in between this and this. There is a spec and a tolerance on how much warpage you can have in this head, but ideally you want 0 warpage. You know, it's got openings here and all these openings here. You'll see light come through there, but you shouldn't see light come through any of the solids points. Look for any gaps where it's touching. Anywhere it's touching, there should be no gap there or there. Here. Go across where the bolts are. Here to here. Look for light. If you see light, get your feeler gauge out and measure that gap. But ideally, it should be perfectly flat. And I'm not seeing anything wrong with this, for the exception of, where is it? I felt a little, like right there. I can kind of feel it with my fingernail. right there. I can't tell exactly where it was leaking from, but the only thing that I can find in this is there's like a little bump right there. I can just barely feel it. I don't know if that's from the gasket squishing down in there or what happened there, but okay, now I'm gonna resurface this. I'm gonna use some sandpaper and a piece of glass. Alright, this is the flattest surface I could come up with. This is a piece of treadmill running board and a piece of glass, and I got my sandpaper taped to this and got it clamped to the bench so it doesn't move. Ideally you would use a surface plate for this, you would call this lapping. I don't have a surface plate. They're not too expensive. They're made out of stone. They're ground perfectly flat. They're nice to have, but I don't have one. But even more ideally, I'd love to figure out a way to stick this thing in my lathe and turn it down. But if I do happen to figure out a way to do that, I will be milling this head just a little bit. But not everybody has a surface plate. Not everybody has a lathe. This is something that anybody could really put together. Just, it needs to be as flat as possible. I want to put some water on this paper so it doesn't build up aluminum, and I'm going to lap in this cylinder head. Now when you're lapping, you want to try to do a figure 8 pattern, and there's not much room on this, so I'm just going to do the best I can. And this is going to take some time depending on how bad it is. And I'm not putting any pressure down on it, I'm just moving it. If you do put pressure down, try to keep the pressure even. I'm going to turn it 90 degrees. And this is going to take a long time, by the way. And once you've done this a little bit, it should start to reveal your low spots. Alright, I got this chucked up into my lathe here. It's kind of sketchy. Let's see what kind of disasters I can create. Alright, so the head is actually warped a little bit. I took 2/1000ths off of it. You can see this in the ring in the center is pretty flat, but the square corners here are like further away from this surface this way. So I'm going to go ahead and mill this thing down, or well, I'm going to turn this thing down and get this completely flat, and may add a little compression to this while I'm here. Alright, I'm 5/1000ths in, and I still haven't cleaned up all the way to the edges of all 4 corners. So I'm going to take a couple more thou. I'm just going to go a couple thou at a time because this is a pretty janky setup here. So I'm just going to make some light cuts, try to get it nice and smooth, and I'm going to work this down. I'm probably going to mill some extra off to add a little bit of compression. So looks like this is working out. Alright, that's looking pretty good. I took 15/1000ths off. That's the thickness of the gasket. Everything looks nice and square and straight. No low spots. Everything cleaned up. Maybe this will give me a little bit more compression. Maybe a little more power. But maybe not. I'm just going to lap the last little bit in. Get rid of the machine tool marks. I can tell it's flat now because it's suctioning to the sandpaper. So she's flat. Alright, I'm going to place the head gasket in here. There's a tab on the gasket, and there's also like a landing for that tab on the cylinder. And you just want to place that on there and make sure you can read up. Stick our nice, clean, resurfaced head back on here. And we're going to pry this back over. Then you stick the nuts back on and torque them down in a crisscrossing pattern. Alright, torque these down 18 to 20 foot-pounds. Alright, start putting this thing back together. Brand new spark plug. Radiator hose back on. Now this plug I'm going to leave out while I fill it up with coolant so it'll bleed the air out. Don't forget to hook up your temperature sending unit. Alright, I'm going to start filling up the radiator, and I'm going to watch for it to come out of the bleed screw hole in the top of the head. You get fluid there, you put that back in, and you can finish topping it off. Alright, it's as much as I can get in for now. I'm going to start it up here and alright, put the cap back on. I'm going to start it up, let the coolant circulate a little bit and get the air out of there, and then I'll put the rest of it in. Okay, now we can put the gas tank and all the plastics back on, and you're done. Well, it's all back together. I don't seem to be having any more problems with the coolant flowing into the overflow like it shouldn't. And it does seem a little peppier with the extra compression. So that's working out. Although I'm going to have to do a little bit of carburetor tuning now. I think I'm going to have to go up a little bit on my main jet. So that's it for now. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing, and don't be afraid to fix it. Thanks for watching.